Hi, I'm Chad. In the fall of 2020, I bought this boat, a Columbia 10.7 called Semantis, for $750. We motored her south to her new home at Chipman Point Marina on Lake Champlain. She is now undergoing a complete refit in preparation to begin sailing the world.
I'm working on a little bit different kind of a project. I got my first day of sailing with a friend of mine with some experience on the McGregor. Last Saturday, August 11th, pretty good day. We ran out with the outboard, got the sails up, sailed a good portion of the day. About 4:30, we were coming back in and the outboard quit. Another dinghy towed us in so we could get on the mooring ball. We probably could have waited, 5 or 10 minutes, restarted it, and then gotten the rest of the way. I'm gonna bring it home, pull it apart, and figure out what's going on. On this particular boat, I have a short shaft Johnson 9.9. The way the throttle works, it drops down quite a ways below the boat, and if you hinge the tiller up, you no longer have throttle control. So I bought a 5-inch extension off of eBay, and I'm gonna turn the short shaft Johnson 9.9 into a long shaft. But before I can put this back together, I need to pull the foot off the bottom and take out the shifting shaft and put it back in. And then I can reinstall the carburetor and the rest of the stuff on the top of the motor. I got it all pulled apart, and the carburetor was clean. That was not the problem. Put it back together, it was spotless in there. So maybe it's sucking air, so we'll figure all that out. I want to take a few minutes to show you the project I'm working on, even though it's not my normal thing. We're going to be cruising, everyone's going to have outboards, I'm going to have to do some of this stuff, so maybe it's helpful, and it's a good learning curve. Okay, so here's my 9.9. I built this makeshift 2x4 outboard stand to hang it on. Here's the throttle control. You can see everything moving internally there, opening, closing. The minute you lift this thing up, it disconnects this gear here. And when that gear is disconnected, it doesn't turn the drive and doesn't control the throttle. I was going after the carburetor problem or whatever's making this not run, because I'm already into it. I'm going to do the extension part. What I've done so far is the correct new spark plugs. There are two different types of plugs that can go in here. There's low-speed trolling plugs and there's high-speed continuous output plugs. So I went with the high-speed continuous output plugs. They're intended for this motor. There are other videos online on YouTube that go into detail on this stuff, and that's actually where I got the information to do what I'm doing. I need to pull this fuel pump apart right here and inspect the diaphragms if I'm not getting fuel out of the fuel line once I put this together. But it's not squirting fuel out of there. It's either this diaphragm pump, or the only other thing I can think of is this here. There must be an O-ring that either goes on this or goes on the plug from the fuel tank. You can see where the lower unit attaches. There's a joint right here, and there's 6 bolts up underneath. That comes off and slides out, and this extension piece goes in there, and then the lower unit goes back on. So here is the water pickup tube, the extension. It's the same part, it's just 5 inches longer. Here is the shifting shaft that I need to swap out. Here is the longer drive shaft, 5 inches longer. And that's it. I have the parts. It can go back and forth from long shaft to short shaft, depending on the application of the outboard. What I need to do first, remove the lower unit, and then I can pull out that shifting shaft. I pulled these 6 bolts. They're 3/8 bolts. I just rested them in the top of the extension there. Put it into forward, you can see the space here that it drops down. There's a screw right there. So I pull that screw out, it'll separate the linkage, and then I can take this lower unit completely off. It is off now. There's the coupler for the linkage right there, going to the gearbox and the final drive for forward and reverse, neutral. So here's the shaft that plugs into the transmission on the bottom end. This one was below the surface here, and you can see that this one is 5 inches longer. I did swap the drive shaft, which is also 5 inches longer. To do that, you have to pull these 4 bolts on the water pump. Remember the direction of the water pump. Get that correct. 2 of these bolts, the ones to the back, are shorter than the ones in the front. They will bottom out if you put them in the wrong holes. I figured that part out by accident. The last piece that I'm not putting in yet goes in here. That's the longer filler tube for the cooling system. Some of these drive shafts have a slot for an O-ring on them. Mine does. Here's the shorter one that I removed. This is the next piece to go on. You can see that this is Evinrude colored gray rather than Johnson. They're the same. So this will be the next piece that I put in. I'm going to need to find 6 more of these bolts. There's 2 ways to change the coolant tube that brings the water from the pump up into the engine. The easy way and the hard way. I did it the hard way. Don't do that. The difference is you can change the whole coolant tube that goes all the way up to the manifold on the bottom of the engine, or they make a little 5-inch extension that just sticks on the bottom. Go with the extension. It makes things a lot more versatile and it's a lot less work. If you want to thoroughly clean the inside, your engine and the pan that it sits in, do it the hard way. The engine comes out. It just picks up and out. You can see it's sitting upside down here right now on top. If you look through here between the motor and the bracket that hangs on the boat, there's an area where you can get in. This is just a seal that wraps around the flange on this. There is a gasket between here and here, the bottom of the motor. You can get in here with a pry bar or screwdriver or something, and you can tap it in that groove and you can free this motor to get it to let go. The other things you need to disconnect if you pull it all the way off, I have not, are the kill switch. I'm doing it up on top here, so it's still attached. There's this ground that goes under one of the motor mounts on the back port side over here. This is the drain. It plugs into this tab here and drains out back into the lake. The only other thing that I had to disconnect is this here, starboard side. This is the plastic detent that controls the gear that you've shifted into. The drive shaft you see here, it just falls out. It's just sitting in here right now, loosely. It's square on both ends, so you can see it turning. And it's kind of a spring-loaded thing. When you push it in, it sets into a detent in here. So that just comes apart, but you don't need to do anything with it. This is where that detent goes in, and it rides right against that. Oh, and fuel lines, of course, going to the fuel pump. So what I'm going to do now, before I put all this back together, clean everything thoroughly. I have done my swap here. Here's your water pickup tube, the new one. You can see it's longer. But here's the manifold. There's 4 bolts. It actually goes through the manifold. So you got to pull the manifold off the gasket, the exhaust manifold. There's some kind of a rubbery bushing in here, and it's a flared end. So pull it off, push it out, push the new one in, and you get your extra 5 inches that you need for the long shaft conversion. Here's the original one. It would have fit right here. You can see the difference in length. And you can also see the bend. You need to make sure that you follow the bend correctly so that it lines up as it should. But like I said, do it the easy way. If you're going to do this, get that little shorter extension. It just pushes on at the end of this area here. So don't make life hard on yourself unless you really want to take it all the way apart. I got something funny with the recoil starter I got to sort out. It was working when I started this, and now when you tighten the bolt down, it locks up. It doesn't spin freely. There's an O-ring missing in the manifold here between the hose. It's a proprietary O-ring. I need to go order 1 or 2 of those. And that's it. 5-inch extension. The pickup tube for the cooling system's good bit right. The drive shaft is done. The shift linkage is done. It does seem to go forward and reverse when you shift it through the cycle, so I think it's adjusted properly. Just a little carburetor tuning, and you can see the long shaft is all put together. Everything works like it should. I think the problem I was having is it was starving for fuel. This manifold right here, the gasket that goes between this plug and this was missing. I put in a couple temporarily. I ordered the real ones. Here's the ones I got. I just tossed a couple in there just to slow it down. And it runs pretty good for a while. It quits. If you pump the priming bulb, it keeps running. What's happening is the bowl is getting empty because it's sucking air here. When I pulled it apart, the back side, that fell right off. That fuel line inside here. So I put pipe clamps on every connection. I pumped it with a primer bulb. I found 1 leak inside. I fixed that leak. This specialized O-ring here, which I've ordered, 2 of them. I think that's the only reason why it wasn't running good. It didn't hurt to tune it up, put the plugs in it, and just check everything out, clean it up. It needs to be wiped down on the outside. You can see all the fingerprints and stuff everywhere. But it runs pretty good. There it goes. Pumping water. Splash a little water out of the hole in the side of that extension. Coming out of there. And I've got to leak a little water out of here coming out of the manifold. But yeah, here it goes. Now it's leaking out now. It runs good, works good. The only thing it does is it starves for fuel. Whoops, it came right off there. It came right off there. So that's the only thing it does, is it starves for fuel at that connection. So as soon as that O-ring shows up next week, I think we'll have this problem licked. This low idle speed, it's this black piece, but inside there's a snap ring that snaps on, and it holds this in place, so when you spin it, it pushes the stop in and out underneath the throttle. So I got to replace this. But it runs just like it is. If you back it off too far, you can install it. All back together. I'm ready to go back on the boat. As soon as I clean it up a little bit. I want to thank those that have subscribed to my channel, or like, share, and comment on my videos. If you're new to my channel, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps me to gain traction here on YouTube.